The Last Judgment by Michelangelo, a fresco painting that was created on the wall behind the altar in the Sistine Chapel 25 years later, after Michelangelo had also created another painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. It took approximately 7 years to create the painting, from 1534 to 1541. This was a very important painting because it was created in a time where Michelangelo had a different view of his own life and was also painted in a very important location of the Sistine Chapel. Many different characters from the Bible are portrayed in the painting, and each has its own particular message, which we will try to understand more in detail as we dive into the reading. Some specific parts of the Last Judgment will be explained more in detail than others, such as the meaning of Christ's body language and the location of the characters in the painting. The Last Judgment painting represents the second coming of Christ to earth. There are a lot of things going on in the painting, so we will try to make the most sense of the painting as possible. Michelangelo Buonarroti, better known as Michelangelo, was born in 1475 and passed away in 1564. One of the most talented artists of his era because of his creative genius and daring attitude made him an artist that many wealthy people wanted to hire for their own personal artistic pleasure. His artistic talents were required by the Pope in Rome, Julius II, for the purpose of creating a fresco painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. At first, Michelangelo refused to do it because painting was not his strongest talent. However, ended up accepting the proposition because the request came from the Pope. The fresco painting created on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel is one of the most important paintings ever created by Michelangelo. Paul III, after replacing Julius II and a few years later, proposed another painting to Michelangelo. Michelangelo's next painting will be The Last Judgment on the wall behind the Sistine Chapel altar. However, there was something different in Michelangelo's own personal views and beliefs. This time around, Michelangelo was not the fearless and charismatic person he used to be, but more pessimistic and more concerned about saving his soul. There was some difference between the first painting created by Michelangelo and The Last Judgment. The fresco painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel shows a God that has a plan for salvation of humankind, as well as characters are beautiful. On the other hand, in The Last Judgment, Michelangelo painted a judgmental God that comes to punish the sinners, as well as characters that reflect pain, fear, ugliness, and torment. Another interesting detail of the painting was its location. Everyone that attended the service could not miss the painting since it was right in front of them. Such a terrifying yet interesting piece was constantly under criticism because of its strong message and nude figures. One of the main reasons behind the commission of The Last Judgment was to send a message back to the Protestant Reformation led by Martin Luther. The high residence marked a period of art focused on the human form more than focusing in religion. This gave grounds to the Protestant Reformation to attack the Catholic Church by its use of images. The Church responded back by commissioning The Last Judgment painting as a way of saying that the Protestant Reformation was wrong about their accusations. The Bible states in Matthew 25:31-33, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him he will gather all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left." Michelangelo's painting shows some truth to the Bible verse. It shows the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, descended from heaven, and to his right are the sheep, meaning the people that accepted salvation by believing in him and will inherit the kingdom of heaven. And on his left, the goats, the people that did not accept the salvation, therefore will be destined to the eternal fire that was prepared for the devil and his angels. The main concept or idea behind the painting was Jesus Christ coming to earth on his second coming and proclaiming his people. But Michelangelo gave it an even more terrifying perspective because of all the little details that play part of the whole painting. Michelangelo shows a completely different view of Christ compared to the normal appreciation of Christ. In the painting, Christ is represented by a strong, muscular figure, clean-shaven, and almost naked. Not the usual bearded, brown, and long-robed figure. His body position with his right hand up, looking to his left, shows an angry God ready to destroy the people on his left side. According to the Bible, Christ's purpose on his second coming is to separate the sheep from the goats. Clearly, the people on his right hand are the sheep, so Christ is not worried about them, but puts all his concentration on the people on his left hand, the goats. If you see closer, you can see God's angels helping the people on his right side come up to heaven, and you can clearly see that the people on his left side are being pulled down by demons. Christ's hand's position gives a clockwise motion view, which it will follow to make more sense of the painting. To his center left, some of the saints are represented holding a tool that was used for their deaths. Saint Catherine of Alexandria was a Christian saint and virgin and was persecuted and then sentenced to die on a spike-breaking wheel. Saint Catherine was sentenced to die after the pagan emperor Maxentius was unable to change her mind. In the painting, you can see Saint Catherine holding a piece of the spike-breaking wheel. The thief that was crucified alongside Christ by the Romans is represented by a person holding a wooden cross. Saint Peter, also known as Simon Peter, was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ. Saint Peter was crucified upside down when he was of old age. However, he is mostly associated as being the keeper of the gates of heaven. This is the reason the painting represents Saint Peter holding two keys. Saint Sebastian is represented with the person kneeling down, holding an arrow with his left hand. The arrows were Saint Sebastian's tool used for his death. Saint Sebastian was killed during the Roman persecution of Christians and was tied up to a post and shot with arrows. Saint Bartholomew, also known as Nathaniel, is one of the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ, was represented holding a knife on his right hand and his own skin on his left hand, because story says that is how he died. Some believe that the skin that Saint Bartholomew was holding was a self-portrait of Michelangelo, possibly showing his own pain at the moment of his life. However, Christian stories suggest three different versions for his death. One of the versions suggests that Saint Bartholomew was kidnapped, beaten almost to death, and then thrown into the ocean to drown. The second version suggests that he was crucified upside down. The last version that we already know suggests that he was skinned alive and then beheaded. To Christ, right just below his right leg is Saint Lawrence. Saint Lawrence was placed on a gridiron and suffered long pain, but it does not appear that he died by that. However, the gridiron is used to represent his death. On Christ's right side center low is a representation of a figure being pulled down by demons known as the damned soul. It is such an extraordinary representation of a person fully knowing the punishment coming and at the same time knowing it's too late to repent. On Christ's left side bottom of the painting, you can see a representation of hell, not in a biblical sense, but taking the visual language of Dante from the Divine Comedy to play as the demon in the painting. Even though the Last Judgment painting was one of the greatest pieces of art ever created, it also started a lot of controversy amongst people. The master of ceremonies, Biagio da Cesena, a high official in charge of ceremonies and decoration who worked for the Pope, said, "It was most dishonest in such an honored place to have painted so many new figures, who so dishonestly showed their shame, and that it was not work for a chapel of the Pope but for stubs and taverns." As a form of revenge, Michelangelo portrays Cesena as Minos, one of the three judges of hell, in the lower right corner of the painting. Michelangelo also portrayed Minos with big donkey ears for the purpose of making mockery of Cesena. That section of the painting was right above the altar in the corner, so everyone attending service could see it without problems. Cesena complained to the Pope, but it did not work because the painting remained. The controversy lasted until 1564, when it was decided by the Congregation of the Council of Trent to cover up the figures that were showing genitals. The Last Judgment, fresco painting by Michelangelo, considered one of the most important paintings in history and in its times, was also considered one of the most controversial paintings of its times as well. The fresco painting shows another side of Michelangelo that was not known about him in his early years, and yet still shows his creative talents and intelligence. The Last Judgment, a fresco painting on the wall behind the altar of the Sistine Chapel, represents a painting of Christ's second coming to separate the sheep from the goats, and bless those that believe in him, and destruction to those that did not believe in him. The main concept of the painting comes from the Bible, Matthew 25, but at the same time you can see Michelangelo's own interpretation and genius in the painting. Thank you.